All right, guys, welcome back to the TCI headquarters. Time for us to go out on a limb, give you our preview and predictions for the game that may decide the Atlantic Division, and obviously, in turn, decide maybe who has a shot to go to the playoff with a championship win. Big win last week for Clemson. Was not what any of us expected. Davis, did you have the score that we ended up having? None of us saw that coming at all. So hopefully, we'll see a little bit more this week. Obviously, weather could throw a curveball in the scoring and the game overall. Davis, let's start with you. What's your key to the game this week? And I know what one of y'all's going to say. Let's see if I'm right.
Yeah, well, that's a good segue into one of mine was going to be is hold on to the ball.
There you go.
I mean, we don't know how bad the weather is going to be, but there's going to be some degree of inclement weather. You have to think come Saturday, particularly with the way the forecasts are right now. But so that could very well be a situation that whichever team can hold on to the ball more and commit less mistakes, comes out with a win. And then sort of falling off that is, I think, running the ball. Because, again, Dabo was asked during his weekly press conference on Tuesday, did you think the running game was going to be a bigger part of the game plan? He said, well, it just depends on how bad the weather is. Because, if we got 40 or 50 mile an hour winds, I think his line was, DJ's got a strong arm, but he doesn't know if it's that strong. So,
Yep.
I mean, I think that's, and I think just overall, just in terms of the whole season, I think they need that balance because I think DJ and this receiving core and these tight ends and these offensive line, they've shown that they can produce at a much higher level and much more efficient level than what they did for most of last season. But the running game has had put together two back-to-back really good games, at least statistically. So you want to be able to build on that. And, this is a game, it could be potentially one of those where you just need to run the ball a lot more than you're used to.
All right, Sam, what you got?
Yeah, well, I think, this isn't exactly a key, but I think it benefits Clemson that this game is being played at home for sure. I think obviously David's talking about the offense. Defensively, they just have to find a way to give their corners some help, and I think that kind of starts up front. Don't necessarily know if it's Xavier Thomas is going to be back, but they're going to have to just be able to get more push up front than they were against Wake Forest because they were at the end of the game when it mattered when you had Tyler Davis and Miles Murphy coming through, but. If they want to be one of the best defensive lines in the country, they're going to have to kind of step up there, and they need their secondary to step up too. But I think the way that you see that is you don't necessarily put guys on islands. And I don't know, Wes kind of talked about being not less aggressive, but maybe putting his players in better opportunities to succeed. So I think early on you're going to try. Maybe NC State's going to try and exploit that secondary and kind of see what happens there. But definitely key is they just need to do a better job of playing the ball defensively. I think if weather permitting, if this turns into you're going to run the ball 50 times a game, maybe the advantage there is for Clemson just because they have done a good job of defending the run. Wake Forest did a good job just with that mesh point and the running backs blocking, but something's got to give defensively. So I do think that Clemson's DBs are going to have to get their heads turned around, and they're just going to have to give those corners more help and get after the quarterback. It sounds cliche, it sounds simple, but it's the truth. Yeah,
well, I was going to say, too, if Devin Leary's actually able to hold on to the ball back there in the pocket, if it's dry enough for him, too, they have to try to target Clemson's corners, right, after watching that film against Wake. So, absolutely, I think that's a big key. And as you mentioned, too, putting them in a better position. I just don't know if you're going to see them pressure as much. I think they need to play more coverage. Just if they had the same personnel, now some of this depends on whether Sheridan Jones and Malcolm Green and some of those guys are back. But if you still have those young guys, I don't know that you put them in on islands.
Well, usually teams that blitz and maybe have 6-7 guys go out to the quarterback, you have more faith in your corners to be able to be like, okay, if this guy gets, if they're able to protect us. Clemson doesn't necessarily have the belief in. They want to have that belief, but everything on tape kind of shows you, we need to start giving these guys some help. So I think it's. He said it's kind of a week-to-week thing, but I would expect them to be kind of less aggressive in rushing the quarterback and more aggressive in trying to, keep the middle of the field.
But to your point too, that it's dictated to somebody your front four. If you can't,
that's the key.
If you can't
the
get
Avengers
pressure,
ought to be able to get pressure.
I think they blitzed more just because their front four
You're
rushed
right.
the passer as well as they thought they would.
Yeah, no, I think it's the key. is those front four, and they've got lots of depth there, and they've got lots of talent there, but those guys just haven't played the way we all thought. Maybe this is the game where they come out. I think the big thing you mentioned a little bit, I think, Sam, is the crowd. I talked to KJ after the game on Saturday, and when that second overtime, they went down to that end where Clemson's fans were.
Yeah.
They got in the game. They kind of gave the defense a lift. You know, Clemson's defense at home, the defense in the big games, usually always, you know, crazy, loud, all that good stuff. That helps the defense. They feed off that. KJ even talked about it in the post game, how hard that makes it for the offense to change play calls and do all that stuff. So I think that's going to be key. Another key that we saw last week, that if we assume it's going to be a little bit messy, it's going to be a running game. If the pass game you do have, I think the tight end might be a key this weekend. We saw Clemson had an outstanding game there last week. If you're having to do the short passes, you can't get the ball downfield.
Right.
Maybe those tight ends can find some holes and help move the chains a little bit. This is going to be a game all about moving the chains, probably not about the 50-yard plays. All right, let's go out with our we're going to do two predictions. We're going to change it up on you guys.
Okay.
We're going to do one prediction for a monsoon.
Okay.
All right? And then we'll do another prediction just for a normal wet rain game, because I think there's a big difference in the scores. So, Davis, you're up with two predictions.
Okay. Well, if it's a monsoon, I think this could be a game in the 20s, maybe high teens. So I have thought about that. So it's interesting that you mentioned this, but I'm gonna say 27-21 Clemson if it's a monsoon type thing. But if it's not, I'm gonna say 38-35 Clemson. I just ultimately, if this game were, and I told Sam this at the beginning of the week, if this game were played in Raleigh, I'd probably pick NC State to win. I'm just, the way the defense is playing right now. You're asking this offense, which has obviously been a lot better, but they had to be nearly perfect.
They did
against Wake Forest, and that's a lot of pressure. It's similar to the pressure that the defense felt last year when the offense wasn't doing much. So I think it's going to be a tight game.
Right, so you got a 3-point game if it's a little bit wet, and then you got more of a bigger win if it's a monsoon.
Yeah, I mean, but I think either way it's going to be a one-possession game where Clemson, I think, is defense at the end is going to have to make a stop to win it.
We've seen that before a lot in bad weather. Sam?
Yeah, monsoon, I would say Clemson 24-19. And if it's, maybe just a little bit damp, 35-31, like Davis, I think it's going to be a one-possession game. I have Clemson winning this game. Like I mentioned earlier, it helps that this game is at home. I just think because Clemson is made, is in the position where their offense has to play perfect football and they haven't had a chance to play complementary football, it would give the advantage to NC State if the game was on in Raleigh. Yeah. But I think, with the record that Clemson has at home with the crowd, I mean, it being a sellout crowd, I think that certainly helps, especially when there has a chance for this game to be sloppy, maybe potentially get out of hand, have some turnovers. You got to just have to start playing complementary football because, it's as perfect as the offense was, there were times when they weren't perfect. Yeah. They were close to perfect, but they didn't turn over the football. That was the biggest thing. That kind of comes out the window a little bit when you're playing in some poor weather conditions. So, the offense is just they're gonna have to hope for a better defensive effort and that the offense can still pick up the defense a little bit.
Yeah. All right. 36 in a row at home, playing off what Sam said. Only one loss in the last 50-something, I think. So, interesting, though, the year they lost to Pittsburgh, the last time they did lose at home, and Dabo talked about this on his radio show last night, they had 6 one-score games they had to win at the end. They went on and won the national championship that year. So, there's hope. I'm going to go monsoon game. I'm not going to go as high scoring as you guys because I think if it's monsoon, I think we really do have 2 really good defenses, even though Clemson hasn't played like that yet. So I'm going to say monsoon game might be like a 14-7 game or something. Clemson wins by a touchdown, but I think both teams might struggle to score. I'm assuming, turnovers and all that stuff. If it's a clearer track, light rain, more normal conditions, I don't think Clemson gets in the 40s this week just because NC State's defense is too good. I'm going to say if it's normal conditions, I think it's probably going to be something like Clemson 34, NC State maybe 17. I do think Clemson's defense is talented enough to come out and put on a performance this week. That's just a guess. I would have thought they would have played a whole lot better last week, and just even against some of the lesser opponents they faced, we've seen some struggles back there. But I think this is the game where the defense comes out and plays like they expect. I think the crowd's going to have a big impact on that. Game day, night game, all that good stuff. So that's our predictions. Hopefully we're a little bit closer than last week. But we'll see. We'll have everything covered for you all week here on the Clemson Insider, game day, everything. Make sure you check us out all week long for the biggest game of the year so far, and we'll see how things go. Thanks for staying tuned to TCI for the most complete coverage of Clemson football.
This is Miles Murphy. Make sure to check out Clemson Insider's most complete football coverage. Nobody does it better.